In our headlines on this Monday, July 13th, here in South Korea, the Lee Jae-myung administration and the ruling Democratic Party are pledging to kickstart a new phase of economic growth in the second half of the year with an ambitious investment and reform agenda. Meanwhile, South Korea is enduring its most intense heat wave of the summer, with daytime temperatures hitting as high as 37 degrees Celsius and tropical nights offering little relief. On the international front, hopes for de-escalation are fading as the US and Iran intensify the latest confrontation, putting diplomacy and regional security under renewed pressure. The Lee Jae-myung administration and the ruling Democratic Party are seeking to hammer out a legal framework in support of South Korea's three mega projects as part of broader economic commitments for the second half of this year. Our political correspondent An Sung-jin reports.
The government and ruling Democratic Party have pledged to make the second half of this year the starting point for a major economic leap. At a policy meeting on Monday, the two sides discussed a growth strategy centered on the administration's flagship three mega projects on semiconductors, data centers, and physical AI, as well as key legislative reforms. The ruling party looks to push through key bills by the end of the year, including the Mega Special Zone Act to foster regional strategic industries through regulatory exemptions and tax support. It is also backing the project through a special committee launched last week dedicated to the project. The DP floor leader said the party aims to move swiftly on the projects to build globally competitive industries and secure new engines of economic growth.
Our goal is not just to deliver record-breaking figures, but to bring meaningful improvements to people's lives. Together with the government, we will make the second half of this year an economic leap year for a stronger, more competitive Korea.
The government also outlined plans to strengthen its response to economic risks by creating an integrated system to manage housing market stability and foreign exchange markets. Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Gu Yun-chol added that the government's strategy focuses on 6 major policy tasks in the 3 key areas of mitigating the economic impact of the Middle East conflict, boosting Korea's long-term growth potential, and addressing structural challenges such as widening inequality. Gu stated that the government will closely monitor risks including inflation, exchange rates, and interest rates, while strengthening economic partnerships to reinforce Korea's supply chains and energy security. With the Democratic Party showing its intent by already setting up a special committee to support the 3 mega projects, all eyes are on whether it can now deliver the legislative and budget support needed to drive the projects forward. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
And the South Korean stock market tumbled dramatically during trade on this Monday amid profit-taking by institutional investors and renewed geopolitical concerns. Our Paek Joo-hee has the closing numbers.
On Monday, the local stock market plunged below the 7,000-point mark for the first time in 2 months. The benchmark KOSPI closed at 6,806.93, down 8.95% from the previous session. The tech-heavy Kosdaq also suffered heavy losses, ending at 799.36, down 4.55%. Retail investors stepped in to buy the dip, but their purchases were not enough to offset heavy selling by foreign and institutional investors. During the session, the Korea Exchange activated a sell-side sidecar on the main KOSPI market at 10:34 a.m., marking the 18th sell-side sidecar activation on the KOSPI this year. The sell-off intensified in the afternoon, with the index falling more than 8%. The plunge eventually triggered a level 1 circuit breaker, shutting down the market for 20 minutes. This marks the 7th activation so far this year. The market's sharp decline was led by the country's largest technology companies. Samsung Electronics sank more than 10%, while chip maker SK hynix plunged more than 15% at the closing bell. The losses came just days after SK hynix made its Nasdaq debut through American Depository Receipt on Friday. Despite the successful debut, institutional profit-taking and growing geopolitical risks fueled heavy selling in the domestic market.
Samsung Electronics and SK hynix together account for nearly 60% of the KOSPI, so increased volatility in these two stocks inevitably leads to greater volatility in the overall index. The recent concentration of investment flows through products such as leveraged ETFs has further amplified price swings in major semiconductor stocks, particularly Samsung Electronics and SK hynix.
The market volatility was also driven by escalating geopolitical tensions. After Iran blocked the Strait of Hormuz, international oil prices surged, with Brent and West Texas Intermediate crude rising by around 4% amid fears of global inflation and supply chain disruptions. Experts advise investors to closely monitor developments in the Middle East and changes in foreign and institutional investment flows, as market volatility is expected to remain high. 백주희, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, weekend mornings are taking on new meaning here in South Korea, with stock market classes gathering crowds of people eager to learn the basics and the risks of investing in the local bourse. Our Kim Jun-hong was there.
It's Saturday morning here in Yeouido, the heart of Seoul's financial market. Office workers are gone for the weekend, but this academy is just getting ready to welcome students.
Class kicks off with an analysis of one of last week's biggest market stories, SK hynix's ADR debut. Every class here is about stocks. For around $330 a month, students receive lessons from basic chart reading to company analysis and overall market conditions. Enrollment has risen alongside this year's stock market rally.
A year ago, we'd get just a few calls a day. Now it's over 30 and enrollment has more than doubled. Recent calls have been from investors who bought Samsung Electronics or SK hynix near their highs.
Students range from college students in their 20s to retirees in their 70s. Including those taking the course online, the academy now has several hundred students.
I never thought stock investing was something I should do, so I didn't even have a brokerage account. But after a lot of recommendations, I decided to give it a try by learning the basics.
Some are shifting how they manage their wealth a little later in life.
Most of my investments used to be in real estate, but I think stocks make more sense now. I hope steady investing will help me enjoy a comfortable retirement.
After first reaching the 5,000-point mark in late January, it took just 5 months for the benchmark KOSPI to climb another 4,000 points to reach 9,000. Rising chip demand and AI optimism lifted the country's chip giants, drawing new retail investors into the market. That trend was reflected in new brokerage account openings across every age group. Accounts for children and teenagers were up more than 600% year-on-year, while the figure for people aged 60 and above rose more than 250%. Real estate has long dominated wealth building in Korea, but that formula is beginning to change, with more money flowing into financial assets.
Some money has shifted from real estate into financial assets since last year's rally. More investors are now taking a longer-term view of Korean stocks instead of treating them as short-term trades.
Experts, however, say it's too early to call it a structural shift. Whether individuals continue investing despite market uncertainty will determine if the trend truly takes hold. Kim Jun-hong, Arirang News.
In other news now, exports during the first 10 days of this month hit a new high, driven by semiconductors and a rebound in shipments to China and the US. Preliminary findings by the Korea Customs Service on this Monday show exports between July 1st and July 10th expanded almost 54% on year to log $29.8 billion. Imports, meanwhile, rose over 17% to post $23.5 billion, resulting in a trade surplus of $6.4 billion. Overseas shipments of semiconductors surged 193%, accounting for roughly 38% of total exports. South Korea's foreign exchange market is bracing for a multi-billion-dollar boost as SK hynix prepares to bring home the proceeds from its blockbuster Nasdaq debut last Friday. Our Lee Ju-yeon explains.
Following its Nasdaq debut, SK hynix is expected to bring a major inflow of capital into Korea's foreign exchange market. The chipmaker raised $26.5 billion through American depository receipts last week, with the proceeds scheduled to be deposited on Tuesday. SK hynix plans to use most of the funds for domestic investment. This means the dollar-denominated proceeds will eventually need to be converted into Korean won, potentially adding a significant supply of US dollars to the local foreign exchange market.
If this ADR listing generates a dollar supply worth around 40 trillion Korean won, or $26.5 billion US dollars, it could serve as a key catalyst in bringing the $1 exchange rate into the 1,401 range.
At the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, around 20 billion US dollars were supplied to the domestic market under a currency swap agreement between the Bank of Korea and the US Federal Reserve. By comparison, SK hynix ADR offering could bring an even larger amount into the market, with proceeds totaling 26.5 billion US dollars. However, experts warn that converting such a large amount all at once could increase volatility in the foreign exchange market. The proceeds are therefore expected to be converted gradually based on capital efficiency.
In the long run, however, the exchange rate is driven more by the won's underlying fundamentals than by short-term supply and demand factors. We may therefore see the won strengthen in the short term, but the longer-term impact is likely to be limited.
Meanwhile, leverage and inverse exchange-traded funds tied to SK hynix ADR are set to launch on consecutive days early this week, just 3 days after the chipmaker's successful Nasdaq debut. With the $1 exchange rate hovering around 1,500 won, analysts say it is too early to determine whether the dollar inflow will help stabilize the market over the long term. Lee Ju-yeon, Arirang News.
The Bank of Korea has rejected talk about the semiconductor upcycle reaching its peak. According to the central bank on this Monday, the market is in fact facing a supply shortage and not an oversupply, as the current boom is fueled by structural and competitive enterprise investments in AI infrastructure. The bank also noted the high technical complexity of manufacturing high-performance chips limits mass production. Accordingly, officials at the BOK forecast chip demand to remain strong well into 2027. South Korea is striving against its most brutal heat wave of this summer, with daytime temperatures hitting as high as 37 degrees Celsius and tropical nights offering little relief. Our Lee Seung-jae reports.
South Korea is sweltering under an intense heat wave, with scorching temperatures and tropical nights affecting much of the country on Monday. Daytime highs are between 30 and 37 degrees Celsius, while most regions are expected to see a heat index of around 33 degrees through Tuesday. Parts of Central Korea, Gyeongsang-buk-do Province, and Jeollabuk-do Province could feel as hot as 35 degrees. Seoul recorded its first tropical night of the year and its hottest temperature so far at 35 degrees Celsius, prompting authorities to expand tropical night advisories. The Korea Meteorological Administration says the extreme heat is being driven by two powerful high-pressure systems over the Korean peninsula, combined with warm, humid southerly winds.
Heatwave advisories remain in effect across most of the country as a strong upper-level high-pressure system and hot, humid southerly winds fuel the extreme heat, with severe warnings issued for Pohang and Gyeongsan in Gyeongsang-buk-do Province.
Temporary relief is expected to arrive from Tuesday as the seasonal rain front moves in, bringing monsoon showers nationwide and temporarily easing the extreme heat. However, forecasters warn temperatures are likely to climb again once the rain passes, meaning the summer heat is far from over. Many people have sought relief from the heat at Seoul's Han River swimming pools, where crowds packed the facilities to cool off and escape the lingering summer temperatures.
It feels like the heat disappears all at once. It's cool and nice. Playing at night feels romantic.
With much of the summer still ahead, many will continue to seek out any relief from the heat, both during the day and night. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, in the Middle East, hopes for de-escalation are fading as the US and Iran intensify the latest confrontation, putting diplomacy and regional security under renewed pressure. Our Cho Young-eun has the latest.
The U.S. continued strikes against Iran over the weekend, which U.S. Central Command said in a social media post on Sunday, were meant to degrade Iran's ability to attack civilian mariners and commercial ships freely transiting the Strait of Hormuz. CENTCOM said President Trump ordered the strikes to hold Iranian forces accountable. According to the latest reports, around 140 Iranian targets were hit, including missile and drone launch sites, in an effort to weaken Iran's ability to threaten civilian shipping in the strategic waterway. Iran's armed forces had launched waves of missiles and drones targeting U.S. military bases across the Persian Gulf, including bases in Jordan, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Oman, in response to U.S. bombings against military facilities late last week. Iran's state-run Islamic Republic news agency reported that enemy projectiles had struck Qasem Island, a strategically important island in the Gulf that is home to a major Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps base. Later reports indicated that additional military facilities in Bandar Abbas, Kesh, and Hajabad had also been attacked. The sharp escalation and hostilities came as Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps announced that it had shut the Strait of Hormuz. However, President Trump immediately rejected the claim and said traffic is flowing. U.S. Central Command has also insisted that the strait remains open, adding that U.S. forces are positioned and prepared to ensure freedom of navigation in the vital waterway. Jo Young-in, Arirang News.
Over in Venezuela, authorities say there have been at least 4,490 losses of lives from the country's devastating earthquakes late last month. The latest tally also shows over 16,000 people have been injured, while almost 18,000 have been displaced, as more than 800 buildings have been destroyed. The United Nations, for its part, expects the death toll to rise as some 50,000 people remain unaccounted for. North Korean Premier Pak has shared his commitment to promoting Pyongyang's strategic partnership with Beijing to meet the demands of a new era. According to the regime state media on this Monday, remarks to this end were included in a message of gratitude from Pak to his Chinese counterpart Li Qiang after a 3-day trip to China that ended on Sunday. The North Korean delegation's visit to Beijing and Tianjin commemorated the 65th anniversary of the Treaty of Friendship, Cooperation and Mutual Assistance. As South Korea grapples with a shrinking population, one Buddhist temple here is offering more than prayers. It's helping singles find lifelong partners. Our Hong Seo-jung shows us how.
With their hearts fluttering with anticipation, participants one by one slowly make their way into the temple. 10 men and 10 women have gathered here, each hoping to find the one.
워크홀릭이라고 많이 해주시는데 여기서는 상을 찾아서 러브홀릭으로 나가고 싶습니다. 감사합니다.
After briefly introducing themselves using their chosen nicknames, the participants showcase their talents to win over potential partners. They are then randomly paired up for a stroll through the temple grounds. By sheer coincidence, some participants are matched with the same partner 3 times in a row.
As we keep talking, we gradually get to know each other better.
Surprisingly, this matchmaking program is taking place at the Naksansa Temple in Yangyang in Gangwon-do Province. Drawing more than 4,000 applicants, the program was first launched as part of a public awareness initiative to address Korea's low birth rate.
Naksansa Temple has long been regarded as a place where wishes come true and meaningful connections begin. We hope the time spent here will lead each participant to a special encounter and a lasting bond.
Following the rules of the temple stay, the participants change into Buddhist robes and share a traditional temple meal.
The calm, traditional atmosphere here naturally makes me slow down and approach things with a more grounded and composed attitude.
They also take part in a date where one person is blindfolded while the other guides them through the temple grounds. Relying on each other every step of the way, they gradually get to know one another better and grow closer. Against the backdrop of the sea, a tea session builds a romantic atmosphere where conversations naturally deepen. The program continues the next day after a nighttime date with the participants of their choice. The poses may be challenging, but the pain seems easier to bear when they're with someone they have taken a liking to. After spending 2 days and 1 evening together, The moment of truth has arrived, resulting in 5 new couples.
Even as marriage becomes increasingly difficult in today's society, love still finds a way. 홍사전 아리랑 뉴스 양양.
This is the world now. Republican U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham died Saturday night after suffering a ruptured aorta. He was 71. According to preliminary findings from the medical examiner's office, the rupture was linked to hardened arteries, with officials awaiting toxicology results to confirm an official cause of death. Just hours before his death, Senator Graham had returned from a trip to Ukraine where he met with President Vladimir Zelensky to discuss air defense needs. Ukrainian and Israeli leaders both expressed condolences, praising Graham's decades-long advocacy for their nations. President Trump called Graham a, quote, hard-working patriot and ordered flags lowered in his honor. Graham had once been a vocal critic of Trump before later becoming a loyal supporter. He spent much of his career shaping foreign policy from the Senate Judiciary Committee, where he oversaw more than 200 federal judicial confirmations. Typhoon Bobby made landfall in eastern China this weekend as the strongest storm to hit mainland China this year. The storm struck the coast of Zhejiang province on Saturday night before weakening to a tropical storm as it moved inland. Chinese authorities had evacuated more than 2.8 million people and thousands of flights and train services were canceled. Despite widespread property damage, no deaths or injuries have been reported. Before hitting mainland China, the storm battered Taiwan, which reported 134 injuries and hundreds of canceled flights. Meteorologists warn the storm system retains enough strength to generate dangerous rainfall hundreds of kilometers inland as it moves toward China's northeastern provinces this week. In Spain, one of the country's deadliest wildfires has killed at least 12 people in the southeastern region of Almeria. The fire has scorched more than 60 square kilometers of forest and farmland since starting on Thursday amid Western Europe's third heat wave this summer. Most victims were foreign nationals who authorities say died after failing to reach safety in time, though family members of one victim dispute claims that adequate warnings were given. Spanish officials arrested 2 people for violating evacuation orders as crews evacuated nearly 1,500 residents from surrounding communities. Chu Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
Seoul is now under a heat wave warning. The bigger concern is that temperatures aren't dropping much overnight. Seoul has logged tropical nights for 2 nights in a row, and tropical night alerts are in place across most of the country. So be sure to protect yourself from the heat. The intense heat is also making the atmosphere more unstable, allowing showers to develop more easily. Passing showers will move through Seoul and other parts of the central regions, including Jeollabuk-do provinces as well. Most areas will pick up around 5 to 40 millimeters of rain. So it's a good idea to keep an umbrella with you when heading home. Starting tomorrow, monsoon rain will spread across the country once again. Through Wednesday, the central regions could see 30 to 80 millimeters of rain, while northern Gyeonggi-do province and northern Gangwon-do province could see more than 100 millimeters of rain. Even with the rain, the intense summer heat isn't going anywhere. Daytime highs in Seoul will be 32 degrees Celsius, while Daegu and Gyeongju will both top out at 35 degrees. Now here's a look at the weather around the world.
Right, those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. As always, thank you for watching.